Okay, so the fourth trimester is the first 12 weeks after giving birth. And what it usually refers to is the physical, the emotional, the psychological changes, the hormonal changes that occur during that period of time. For some people, they then have this symptoms which occur a bit longer, and then that's when they can enter that postpartum depression and even anxiety phase. But again, I think because there's not a lot of information given about this period of time and the changes that can happen in a woman's body, a lot of it comes as a surprise. And often women are left feeling that they are failing as a mother because they're like, why am I finding this so hard? Why am I not enjoying this experience as I thought I would? And it's usually because we just haven't communicated enough. Everyone always says, oh yeah, that's a really tough period. It really was a shock to my system. And as you mentioned, when you first give birth to baby, everyone's coming around with food, with gifts. And then all of a sudden this starts to tailor off after the 6 weeks period. And then you're just left on your own with a baby. And especially if you don't have a community or have other friends, you don't really have that support network around you. And this is why women tend to struggle. And then even the partners as well, they're also going through the changes as well. They're seeing their partner, give birth, all the things she's going through. And then they're having to also adjust to being sleep deprived and also going back to work usually for them, usually between 2 to 6 weeks after giving birth.
Welcome to the 51%, the podcast where we cut through the noise and get back to basics when it comes to women's health. Through expert insights and powerful personal stories, we help you tune into what really matters: your body, your well-being, your life. No one-size-fits-all advice, just real conversations to help you understand your health on your terms. But before we dive in, I've got a quick favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and join the 51% community on our website. It's free and helps us grow, reach more women, and create events that really speak to the health and wealth challenges we all face. And finally, just so you know, everything shared is for information only. It's not medical or financial advice, and always speak to a qualified expert for support that's right for you. Julie, welcome to the podcast. It's fantastic to have you on. Please, could you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you're doing now? Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thanks so much for having me, Shreya. So in terms of who I am, I'm a GP by background. I'm also a mother of 2 rainbow babies and an angel baby as well. And I am a passionate advocate for women's health, mental health, and also health equity as well. So in that space, I do a lot of voluntary work, working with organisations to try and address any health inequalities, particularly amongst Black populations. And I am also working as an associate non-exec director for a mental health trust. And in addition to that, I am also writing a book on the 4th trimester, just because I had a lot of struggles in that period of time. And I felt that even as a medical professional, I wasn't fully aware of all the different things that can happen to a woman's body. So I really wanted to write a book just to honestly just describe what happened to myself, what happened to other people when I was talking to them about it, and just share my experiences. And in addition to that, I'm also creating a app. So this app is meant to support parents from preconception to postpartum, and it's also going to have a community hub in it and have a services hub where essentially what I want people to be able to do, or parents to be able to do, is that if they're looking for any services, it could be a doula, it could be a night nurse, particularly in that postpartum period, they can book the services via the app. So this is something I'm currently fundraising for at the moment. I'm working with an amazing chief technical and product officer. So we're hoping that we can raise funds we can launch next year.
Wow, not much then.
Not much. Also, I saw maternity leave as well, but it's been challenging balancing it. I realize I can't do it all, so I'm trying to just be a bit more selective about what I say yes to now. Because I think before I was trying to do everything as I was doing before having my second, but I realized there's a big jump between having 1 baby and having 2. So I've realized now that I just can't say yes to everything. So I'm trying to take it a bit more easier and be kinder to myself if I'm not meeting all these deadlines that I self-inflict on myself.
Absolutely, that's true. So thank you for joining me and saying yes to agreeing to come on this podcast. I really appreciate your time. I know, being a mom, being on maternity leave, and of course all the other amazing things you're doing, it's stretching your time, and obviously you're managing your time amazingly, and in the thought process of, I want to also take care of myself. in this process. It's not work, burn out, and then crash, which is great to kind of emphasize. Really, you're doing it on your terms and making sure you incorporate that self-care, because ultimately you have caring responsibilities as well, not just for your kids, for yourself. You have a huge responsibility to care for yourself, which I can't emphasize to everyone, to make sure they get on board on that. So this conversation really is about the fourth trimester, because, we tend to talk a lot about, getting pregnant and then the pregnancy journey. And then as soon as the baby arrives, then that's it, really. And I've had my experiences with that. Everyone's excited that you're pregnant. Well, not everyone. A lot of people are probably excited that you're pregnant, and so on. And then you have the baby, everyone's excited, and then that's it. And then you're left on your own with this, human being. And a lot of women, especially if it's your first, you have no idea what to do. No matter what advice you get, ultimately, everyone's experience and situation is different, and that is key. And this is why the fourth trimester is so important. So can you talk about, I know it's a big question, but what exactly is the fourth trimester and what does it involve?
Okay, so the fourth trimester is the first 12 weeks after giving birth. And what it usually refers to is the physical, the emotional, the psychological changes, the hormonal changes that occur during that period of time. So obviously when you're pregnant, you have all these hormones, high levels of estrogen, low levels of progesterone, etc., just to try and help you sustain your pregnancy. But then the minute you give birth, all of a sudden these hormones levels just drop suddenly. And that's usually when people go through the baby blues. So they usually say, between day 1 and day 5, you can go through baby blues. But then for some people, they then have this symptoms which occur a bit longer. And then that's when they can enter that postpartum depression and even anxiety phase. But again, I think because there's not a lot of information given about this period of time and the changes that can happen in a woman's body, a lot of it comes as a surprise. And often women are left feeling that they are failing as a mother, because they're like, why am I finding this so hard? Why am I not enjoying this experience as I thought I would? And it's usually because we just haven't communicated enough. Everyone always says, oh yeah, that's a really tough period. But it's usually said in hindsight, or said when you're pregnant already. And it's like, oh yeah, you're never going to sleep again. And you're like, oh, thanks for that. And for myself, I thought, I've done night shifts. I know I've stayed up all night studying. I know what it is to be sleep deprived. But that sleep deprivation I experienced in the first, 6 to 12 weeks after giving birth was just completely blew my mind. I just never experienced anything like that in my life. And it really was a shock to my system. And as you mentioned, when you first give birth to baby, everyone's coming around with food, with gifts. And then all of a sudden this starts to tailor off after the 6 weeks period. And then you're just left on your own with a baby. And especially if you don't have a community or have other friends who have babies as well, you don't really have that support network around you. And this is why women tend to struggle. And then even the partners as well, they're also going through the changes as well. They're seeing their partner, give birth, all the things she's going through, and then they're having to also adjust to being sleep deprived and also going back to work usually for them, usually between 2 to 6 weeks after giving birth. And again, these are a lot of changes, and it can affect the relationship as well, which again, it's not spoken about. So this is why I'm writing the book, just to try and really detail from head to toe all the physical changes that it can occur in a woman's body, and also how it can impact relationships as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That there are huge changes that happen in your body after you give birth. Now, from the moment you bring the baby home, how do you know if something's not quite going to plan in terms of not the baby, but your body, your feelings, your emotions, all of these things? How can you pinpoint? Because obviously your focus ends up being this baby, and your feelings and what is going on behind the scenes with you is often put on a back burner. So how can you identify those signals? Actually, something isn't quite right here, and I need to seek help or speak to someone about it.
Yeah. Well, usually in the first, 2 weeks after giving birth, you'll be seen by health visitors or your midwife. So they will ask those general questions just to make sure that, you know, you're coping well, how you're doing mentally. But usually it seems almost like a tick box exercise. And when they ask, oh yeah, how are you doing? You're like, oh yeah, I'm fine. And you're like, oh, yeah, I'm a bit tired, or oh, yeah, a bit emotional. And they're like, oh yeah, that's normal. But when I would say it starts to feel or becomes abnormal, becomes a risk to, well, a risk of progressing to something more serious like postpartum depression or anxiety, is when those feelings are affecting how you're able to bond with your baby. So either it's making it, everything just feels so intense, the baby's crying, and then you just feel like, oh my gosh, I can't cope. If you feel overwhelmed, if you start to have those dark thoughts creeping in, those intrusive thoughts where it says, you're not a good mother, maybe you shouldn't be here. If you have any thoughts of maybe harming yourself or harming your baby, then those are the main risks and the signs something isn't quite going right and you need to go and seek help. But it is challenging, because even with myself, and again, what I'll speak about in the book and what I've spoken about openly before, is that I suffer with postpartum depression and anxiety. And for a long time, I just thought it was just something I just needed to continue on with. And I think I mastered it quite well, because what I found is that being at home, I found I had high levels of anxiety. It was really intense for me. So I used to be out all the time. So when people were looking at me, they're like, oh my gosh, she goes to baby groups, she's going to the library, she's going swimming for baby, she's doing all these activities. Oh, baby yoga, baby massage, you're the perfect mum, out every single day. But that was my coping mechanism, and I was really stressed out and overwhelmed with it, but I still kept on going, because I thought, okay, being out is definitely better for me than being at home alone, where I have no one to talk to but a crying baby who just wanted to breastfeed all the time. So I mastered it that way. And again, as a doctor, I knew something wasn't quite right, but I still kept on pushing through. I felt like I couldn't seek help. I know it sounds, again, this makes me realize when mothers don't come and seek help initially, how difficult this process is. So it took me a long while. I think it took me about 12 months before I went to go and see my GP and say, that I'm having these feelings, I'm really struggling. I've given it, the time that everyone says it takes to adjust, the 3 months to 6 months even. But I'm still really struggling. And it was through them I started counselling, and I even required some medications for a 6-month period as well, just to help balance those hormones and those emotions. And I felt like it wasn't until that point that I actually felt like, oh my gosh, is this what normal mothers feel like? Because again, so I met some people and they were like, yeah, no, motherhood is great. And I'm like, really? Like, I'm really struggling. I'm really, wow. Like, how are you able to just, make everything look perfect?
Yeah.
And I realized it was this, I had other things going on, which was making things extra challenging for me. And again, it also depends on the type of baby that you have as well. Some babies are really nice and blissful. My second, he's the happiest, chillest, calmest baby. He sleeps well, which is perfect. But if you have a baby who's waking, every 45 minutes to an hour overnight, so you're really sleep deprived, have a baby that's, really clingy, that wants to be in your arms all the time. All of these things can contribute to, those feelings of struggling and those extra stress levels, which can contribute to postpartum anxiety and depression.
Yeah, I think, a lot of this is society putting all these kind of narratives around having a baby and making it look like it's so easy and it's simple and it looks so, it's all roses and it's all beautiful and wonderful. But the reality, I mean, talking my own experience, it's the most stressful thing I've ever done in my whole life.
Yes.
And I always said, I've been through a lot of crap, right? Up, down, lots of things. But this is the most stressful thing. And it's constant. It's always there.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't turn it off. I admit, there are days when, things are fine and things are going along smoothly and you think, oh, this is getting better. And then something goes and slaps you in the face and it just comes at you and you just think, oh my God, and that just carries on with all children until, I don't know if there is a stop button at what age, but it's a massive responsibility on your shoulders, and I guess if a woman, lots of women have different experiences when they give birth. That's the first thing, especially if they've had a traumatic birth.
Absolutely.
And then that's one thing. And whether they have a traumatic birth or not, then they're kind of in the care of the hospital, but then not really seen in hospital, isn't seen, you know, they're kind of right, off you go, out you go, and that's that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the added layer of, you know, you talk about you want to share your experiences as a Black woman as well. Now, I hear a lot that Black women are dismissed the most in, you know, GP settings, hospital settings. So can you talk a bit about that and how, whether that impacted you, or, you know, how as a Black woman you can kind of navigate these things, and advocate for yourself in a GP setting or in a hospital setting, you know, while you're giving birth, just all of it, really.
So it's a tricky one. So I think I was really hyper vigilant of these statistics in terms of how maternal statistics for Black mothers, and our risk of not mortality, dying, or having any sort of adverse outcomes from giving birth, and also our risk for postnatal depression, anxiety, and also stillbirth as well. So all of these statistics were really, at the forefront of my mind during my pregnancy and also birth. So I found that I probably advocate for myself from a position of privilege. So in the hospital that I gave birth at with my son, my second, I knew the doctors there. So I knew who to go and speak to. I knew the right language to use. So anytime I had any concerns, I think I was, taken care of quite well. They went over and beyond for me. In my case, I would say I didn't have any issues with my care. In terms of my experience of actually had to deliver it was quite traumatic for me. So what happened was I had a emergency cesarean section, and they did the epidural. But I think for 1 in 100 women, they don't tell you this, it may not work properly the first time. So when they were doing the C-section, I felt more than I should feel. I'll just say it just in the simplest way, just to
Right.
trauma from this, so trigger warning. So I felt more than I should have felt, and I did communicate it to the team at the time. And then even then I was like questioning myself. I started to doubt, like, am I overreacting? Because they're like, oh, no, that should be fine. We did this, it should be okay. And it was only when they were doing procedure, like, oh, your muscles feel a bit more tense than it should do, that they haven't seen anything like this before, that I felt like they then started to, give me extra medications to help me relax and also help me to be more comfortable during the procedure. So I can see how quite easily it's, and then this was me coming from a medical background, how someone, if they didn't have a medical background, how this experience could have been completely different for them. I would say that if you want to advocate for yourself, properly, depending on if you don't feel confident enough to do it, then maybe bring a loved one with you, a family member. You can also get doulas as well, who can come along with you to your appointments, and who may have a better understanding of some medical terminology that you might not quite understand. I would say write down everything that they're saying, so that if you do have any questions, you can always follow it up with your midwife as well, or your consultant when you do have your consultant appointments, or even your GP. And it's okay to ask questions. Keep on asking questions until you understand what's going on. If you don't understand something, you don't understand why they're making this decision, then it's okay to ask them, like, why are we doing this? Like, what's the reason for this? What's the outcome that we're expecting from making this decision? Why do I need this medication? What are the side effects of it? I think it's important that you feel confident enough to ask these questions throughout the process. And, even if you still don't feel confident, then also you can ask for second opinion as well. If you feel like this person is dismissing you, then ask to see someone else. I think those are the three main things that I would recommend to anyone going through the system. If they're struggling and they feel they're not being heard, these are the things that you can do just to make sure you're better supported in a medical environment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, whatever happens, especially if you're giving birth, your head is probably all over the place, and you may not be able to advocate for yourself fully at that time. So really try and bring someone with you, whoever you trust, and kind of prep them, because again, they're not going to know everything. So if you say, look, if I tell you I'm not feeling comfortable, I need you to relay that however you can, and let the professionals know. So absolutely, that is definitely important.
Discuss with your loved one, what you want in your care. So if you really don't want an epidural, then clearly communicate it to them to see if there's any alternatives before you get there, and be like, okay, I think always communicate what you want, but also have a a backup plan. So, okay, if things are not going to plan, this is the point where then, okay, they can give me epidural. If I'm really, really struggling and I say these words to you, then this is when you say, okay, yes, now she wants it. But if I'm like, oh, and then I feel like they're pushing me to do something, and then I've clearly told you this is not what I want to do, then I want you to of reason in that moment when perhaps, you might be medicated, you might be in a lot of pain, you might be just tired, exhausted from your contractions of what's going through labor. You might not be able to think clearly. So just having someone there who's, they're still going to be involved in obviously seeing what you're going through, but someone there who knows what you would want, I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I want to talk about the point of when you've had your baby, or even throughout the pregnancy, really, or even before that, when you're trying for a baby, there's so much information out there,
Yes.
and also things that you see in the media, whatever form of media it is that you use, is kind of this ideal that some people portray, that, it almost looks like, oh wow, how does she look like that? Or how is she managing? She looks just like, it's everything so easy. And comparing yourself to that, how can you manage those kinds of expectations?
So for me, in my second pregnancy, following my loss, I found it really difficult to watch other mothers who just seemed to have the ideal pregnancy. They were carefree. They were doing things which I thought was a bit risky that I would never do if I was pregnant, but they were able to do it and they were completely fine. So what I did find that I had to do was just mute everyone. I just had to mute all the pregnant people that I knew that I was following, just so I wasn't constantly seeing that content, because I felt like it just made me feel worse about myself. So I feel like if you find that, you're following someone and it's causing you to have, feelings of unease, of jealousy, resentment, whatever it is. I know people don't like to say those words, but sometimes these are not human emotions, and they can happen, especially if you're having a challenging pregnancy or high risk pregnancy. It's okay just to mute or block them for a little while. Just don't have to constantly see that content. And then I think even now with my content I'm seeing at the moment, I think my algorithms have changed. So they don't show me the ideal mothers, they show me mothers who are like just telling me that they're going through it as well. They're telling me the stories about how they feel like they're failing. And it's stuff, I guess it's a very dark humour that I probably got from being a doctor. But that's probably the stuff I tune into a bit more. So mothers like just saying, oh, my baby didn't sleep, look what they're doing, and they're 3 years old and they're still not sleeping, haven't slept a night, a full night since they were born. And then these are the things that I relate to. So I try to follow things that I can relate to, that are more closer to my experiences than to what I consider is the ideal, what I should be achieving. Because for me, that's not my story. And I realized that if I keep on seeing that content, it's not good for my mental health. So I just take time just to tune it all out. And so there's moments where if it's just, if there's anything I'm seeing that I don't like, or it's just making me feel some sort of way, I just turn it off and I'm like, okay, I don't want to see any more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right, the algorithm, the more you click on the likes of someone that you can relate to, the more of that content you will see, as opposed to if you keep liking someone that looks perfect and acts perfect, their life is amazing. Well, on the social media, I don't know what's happening in the background, but on the front of it all looks amazing. Exactly. You're going to keep seeing that. And, let's face it, we're all human. We are going to start feeling, potentially, unless you have a very strong mind and way of transforming all the kind of messages, and sometimes we are at weaknesses, and we think, it makes us feel down and negative, and you start comparing your life and yourself to all these people. I mean, I've certainly unfollowed some people not because I don't like them or anything. I think they're amazing. It's just because sometimes I get into this comparison thing, and I think, oh wow, look at them, look what they're doing, and look where I am. And I think, you know what, if I just unfollow them for a while, because it's not helping me, and it's not about the resentment, it's just about me trying to be as positive as I can in that time period.
Place. Yes.
Yeah.
So I even on people as well, that if I see anything, they're just posting lots of negative content. I like things that be humorous, If they're just posting, lots of like negative content, then I also follow that as well. So it goes both sides. If I see it overly positive, overly negative, I'm like, okay, I don't want any part of that. I don't want anything that's going to add to my anxiety, to, me feeling depressed or feeling low. So I also unfollowed that too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, that is, putting social media aside, let's talk about community and the importance of community. More and more, I'm kind of reading now and seeing the huge benefits of having a community and how that is good. It's almost like it should be part of your health tick box.
Yes.
That's what I'm finding now. And I never really thought of it like that. I know, having great friends and stuff around you is really great for you, but I'm thinking more especially as I get older, like forming communities. So how important is that? And how do you even go about that? Because, you come home with this baby and you're kind of left alone. Perhaps your partner at some point will go back to work full time, and you may have to go back to work full time. But how do you form this community?
So when I, again, with my first and second pregnancies, I moved out quite far away from my family to like Rochester, Kent area, just because of affordability. So we moved out there, and I didn't know anyone in the area. We just bought a house and said, okay, we're going to set up, have our family here. So at that point in time, I didn't really understand or appreciate how important a community would be in terms of going through pregnancy, going through loss of a pregnancy, and also having another successful pregnancy afterwards. So I didn't actually, fully process this. So it was only after going through that I realized that I actually really need to be close to my friends and my family, and my family in particular. So my sister used to come down quite often and stay with us and help to support us. But my parents, they still work full time, so they weren't able to be, with me as often. Even my sister works full time, but she's also in healthcare, so she does shift work. So it's a bit easier for her to be around compared to my parents who work 9 to 5s. So I just found that we really struggled. We had my mother-in-law move in for a certain period of time as well, just to help support us. And then ultimately we moved back closer to London, where my family are from, because we just needed the support. So every single weekend I'm down at my parents' house. I just need, they help me with the boys, and I just get to like sit down and just relax a little bit. And they're always happy to see, their grandchildren or the nieces and nephews.
Yeah.
I'm happy just to be able to like have a breather, not be the one who has to entertain them all of the time.
Yeah, and get amazing food cooked for you as well.
Oh yes, that's definitely a plus. Yes, I get to get a little Tupperware on a weekly basis that I get to bring home and at least have a couple of days food in the fridge. So that's always excellent. And then again, we moved closer to family. So even seeing my son and how he's able to hang out with his cousins and have support, just be able to be like, okay, go and stay with your cousins for this afternoon, and have support that way as well. And again, my mother-in-law, now she doesn't have to live with us, she's back home. But again, she's also there giving us support as well. And then even being close to friends and family, of being close to friends, I should say, because again, I didn't have any friends out there. So going to all these baby groups, it was a way of me, having some sort of social interactions, which I felt like I really needed. And it took me a while until I was able to find, I guess, my tribe of mums out there. So coming back again, just being closer to some of my friends who are also at the same stage of life that I'm at the moment, we can meet up for coffee. It can just be like an instantaneous thing, like, oh, I can message him now, like, oh, you doing anything? And like, oh, no, I'm not. Okay, let's go for coffee. Let's go for a walk in the park. These are the things that I wasn't able to do before. And sometimes you don't really discuss how lonely or how isolating motherhood can be, especially once your partner goes back to work and you're just left alone with the child all day. I mean, they're beautiful, they're entertaining, but there's only so many times I can watch Miss Rachel or sing nursery rhymes to them before you get bored and you're like, okay, I need to speak to adult now. I need to just, laugh and talk about something other than just being, specifically baby related. So just being able to speak to people just about how you're doing, how they're doing, just about life in general, that is just so important. It helps you just to, maintain your identity as well, which you often forget about because you're so focused on being the perfect mother. But in that period of time, you can also lose who you are as a person. And then this is I guess going through motherhood and not really having friends who were also in that stage of life, that's when I noticed some distance in certain friendships and relationships. And I wouldn't say they did anything wrong at all, because they're still busy, their life still goes on. But again, their life is going on. They're able to do things. I have a group, a WhatsApp group with my family members who are currently planning a trip to Paris for the weekend. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great, but I don't think I can come along because I've got kids. But these are the things that happen. And this is how you can start to become more and more isolated. So this is why it's important just to make sure you find maybe other mums or other people in the same period of life that you're in as well, so that you can just keep that sense of identity and just feel like yourself again.
Yeah, absolutely. You made a really good point there as well, going out to these groups and coffees and whatever with mums, but you've got to find the right group, the right tribe for you, because you can be in a situation where you're sat there and you just can't connect and relate or whatever.
I've been there, yes.
Yeah, me too, absolutely. And you just stay there because you just think, well, this is it, but no, it's not it. And really, that you will find, you just got to, it's like anything, trying to find a good counselor or trying to find a good doctor, whatever it is, you got to keep going until you find the right person that, so you made that's a really good point. Don't think that, you go to one group and you just stuck there and you have to stay there because there's nothing else. You just get out and move on, because you'll soon find that if you stay there, you're going to be in a worse place mentally as well.
More isolated, because everyone's just having conversation. You just sat there, or they'll be like, oh yeah, we're going, well, they'll just say, they'll skip and be like, oh yeah, we're going for coffee, and then you don't necessarily get invited because you're not fully part of that clique or that group.
Yeah.
And we're more isolated as well. So again, something which it sounds like I'm doing lots of projects, but this is already done. So whilst I was on maternity leave in the earlier stages, I made a database of different postnatal support groups for mothers. So these are like mum groups or just groups, social groups in general, just because I found that I really struggled to find a group, not even just a group, but a group that was diverse, that had other mothers like me who understood some of the cultural nuances that perhaps people don't do because they haven't lived that story. They don't have parents from the same cultural backgrounds as I do. So I wanted to create a database so that anyone who's going through this experience of motherhood can find their tribe of top of people that relate to them, who look like them, who have same shared experiences as them. So this is something that I'm working on, and it should be released in the next few weeks.
Oh, that's great. I think that is so important, finding a diverse group, because when you're the only person, not everyone can relate to you. And then that's how the distance happens as well. And it's almost like, the cultural differences, other people can't relate to it. But of course, if there are people that can relate to that, it helps you, because then it becomes a case of, oh yeah, your mum did that, and you had to eat that as well. Like in my culture, when the baby's born, they put you on this, like, it's not a diet, like a diet thing, but they give you certain foods to nourish your body, and that kind of thing. And unless you're from my culture, I'm sure your culture does the same thing, but it's different types of food, right? Not everyone can relate. But then I also think if the group is diverse, people can learn other people's ways of doing stuff. As well. There's so much in that as well. Like if I'm part of your group as an example, and you say to me, look, Shreya, we do this, like my mum has bought me this food, and I'm like, oh, I've never thought about that, let me try that. And then I share, you're like, I'm sharing to you, and like, look, Julie, my mum bought me this and she made me this, and here, try some, that kind of thing. It's just
no, exactly. I think that's so important, just to be able to like share those experiences. And you need a group that's diverse. Otherwise, I did join NCT, but I think the NCT group based where I was in Rochester was very different to like an NCT group closer to London. So again, I just didn't quite mesh with the people that I was there with. I mean, we were all just a completely odd bunch. We just so I think we just, other than joining a group, we just weren't a group of people that were going to connect, compared to when I speak to other people, like, oh my gosh, I still talk to them now, and 3 years on, and we're like the best of friends. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really wish I found that. But again, it just needs to be a diverse group, and they are out there, and then there's more and more. As I was researching for the database, I found so many different groups that are working, and again, they're all working in silos, just doing it silently and not really showcasing the work that they do. But it's only like if you know them, or to look for them on Instagram or even TikTok or anything like that, that you're actually able to find these groups. So I just want to put it in a centralized place where you can just go and look and be like, okay, this group runs on this day, let me go ahead and see if I like it there. And you can just keep them trial and error until you find your right match.
Is that going to be kind of like a UK wide?
So I'm starting with Kent and Medway, because I think if I say UK wide, it's going to be too massive for me. And then hopefully, if that's successful, then we can start to branch out and see what's going on in different areas.
Oh, that's great. I will put all those details in as
Yeah.
soon as you have everything
Yeah.
ready. Of course, I will add that to my show notes and obviously my emails and everything as soon as everything's sorted. So I wanted to ask you, what kind of practical advice would you give in terms of, even throughout pregnancy and then afterwards? People think right now, I've got to go back to exercise and
Yeah.
this and that and eat this and don't eat that. And, this, I mean, the list is probably endless. And then you, especially again, seeing people that look like something that you don't look like, basically, and they've snapped back into this. I mean, surely there are limits to this now. And, as an example, I had an emergency C-section with my first, and, big mistake. The midwives or the doctors, they didn't tell me, or unless I forgot, I'm sure they would have told my husband, that I couldn't drive. I shouldn't be driving for 3 months.
Yes.
Yeah. But what did I do? I went straight into driving.
Oh,
Is it
okay.
not on the first day? I'm not saying on the first day. I didn't just come out and start driving. But after a good maybe 2 weeks or so, I just started driving, and I didn't know. I had no idea I wasn't supposed to drive. So what kind of things would you suggest that people like? What should they do and what shouldn't they do, basically, when they have a baby? And I know things are different for whether especially when you have a C-section, things are very different.
Yes. So first thing, I had a C-section as well. My last 2 deliveries were C-sections. So I would say first and foremost, after C-section, to make sure you're taking your pain relief. And take it regularly. So you even before, because sometimes I would be like, oh, I'm not in any pain, let me not take it. And then I'll do something, I'll be like, ouch, and now I'm in a lot of pain, and I have to wait for it to work. And again, it impacts everything in terms of like breast milk supply, etc., etc. So, make sure you're taking your pain relief. I would also say, everyone says to rest, and resting doesn't necessarily mean sleeping, because sleeping is just completely a myth in those periods of time. But I was just taking it easy, just being like, let people wait on you, hand and foot. It's not going to happen for a really long time. They're going to get tired of it pretty quickly. But in those first 2 weeks when everyone's running around you, let them do that. Let them cook for you, let them clean, and just worry about just looking after your baby. You don't have to be everything to everyone. So that's what I really learned, just to really be pampered, and just to be like, hey, I'm hungry. Can you bring me a meal downstairs, or cook me something, rather than me trying to be in the kitchen. And then even in terms of driving, so the rule is 6 weeks, but even at 6 weeks, if you still feel like you're having a lot of tenderness around your scar site, then go for longer. Just because we give these are guidelines, they don't absolutely know, okay, 6 weeks now you must start driving. So listen to what your body's saying. So even in things like exercise as well, again, they say 6 weeks you can start to begin exercising. I went for a walk at 6 weeks, and I was in so much pain afterwards. I mean, when I was walking, it felt great. The following day, I was in so much pain, and I was like, this almost feels like I just had my cesarean section again. So, okay, 6 weeks, you should be feeling back to normal. That might not be the case for you. So just take it easy, listen to your body. If your body's telling you that you're in pain, that you're pushing yourself too far, then stop what you're doing. It might be a bit uncomfortable, but if it gets to a point where it's painful, you're needing more medications, particularly after the 6 week period, then stop whatever you're doing. You shouldn't be doing it at that point in time. You will get there eventually. And even things like eating healthily, I mean, drink lots of water, absolutely. Drink lots and lots of water. Take your supplements as well. But eating healthily, I mean, I was breastfeeding, so I don't know about if you had this experience, but they say breastfeeding helps you to lose weight. Complete lie, because when I breastfeed, I get so hungry. And it's not even a typical hunger where, your stomach is just growling. I literally start to shake, and I start getting really irritable. Like my sugar levels are running really low, and I need to eat something. And usually what I want to eat is something like chocolate, or eat something sweet usually. So I want to eat cake, I want to eat chocolate, I want to eat all these sweet things. I mean, the only thing that saved me in this postpartum period is that my son has cow's milk protein allergy, so it meant I couldn't have my dairy products, which was a really, really big struggle for me. But I found that I started to snack on things like popcorn. So ideally, I would say, swap if you do feel like you need to snack and have something unhealthy, something sweet, then obviously choose healthier options. So something else which I really enjoy snacking on as well, so things like raisins, or they say nuts and all these other healthy snacks. But if you can't do that all the time, you just really need to have that chocolate bar. It's okay. I think everything is okay in moderation. You don't need to be yourself. There's no, I mean, it takes your body about 2 years for you to completely go back to, your pre-pregnancy self. So I always say give yourself 2 years to get this, ideal body that you want back, if that's what you're aiming for. But before then, just be kind to yourself. Just do things easily. Try and live healthily, eat well, exercise, move more. But I would say you don't need to do anything drastic. You don't need to be any like particular diets or anything like that. Especially if you're breastfeeding, you need to make sure you're still having the appropriate nutrition in order to feed your baby. But at the same time, we also don't want to be just eating junk foods all the time as well, which is something that, again, you're super tired, you don't want to cook, you have no energy or time to do anything. So cooking's the last thing. I've definitely used a lot of Uber Eats in this period, but again, things are in moderation. If once or twice a week you need to do that, that's fine. But maybe just have a healthier option as well.
Yeah, I think the whole, body image and the food, it's almost like there is no right body after pregnancy.
Exactly.
And, again,
I have my scars. I'm just like, this is a sign, or this is like I guess a mark of honor of what I've been able to carry. I brought life into the world. This is what I'm left with because of this, what my body was able to do. So I don't look at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I hate these stretch marks. I just look at them like, these are wonderful. I look at this and look at my babies and I'm like, I'll do it 10 times over. I do not care about any extra jiggle. Again, I do feel like, oh yeah, I want to get, a bit more healthier, but I'm like, with time, it will come back. And again, I think because I left about 3 years between my second and third, I've seen that, okay, you do go back to, okay, I wasn't completely back to my normal self, but the weight does come off eventually. So I'm just going with the flow now. I'm not being super harsh on myself. I'm just taking it easy.
Yeah, exactly. And this is, it's about healthy eating, and
yes.
it's not about going on any kind of diet with the aim of losing a stone, or I don't even know, do they even say stones anymore? I'm so old school.
I don't have a scale.
No, is it like, I'm so old, people maybe they use kg, I don't know. I still use stone because that's what I was brought up on.
Yeah, no, I use both.
Yeah, but yeah, like it's like fit. It's not about the weight, it's really just about eating healthily, moving when you feel like you can, whether whether or not you've had a C-section or not, and just trying to do what's best for you. And and what about the pelvic floor though?
Oh, pelvic floor. I'm doing my exercise. I found a wonderful person on Instagram. I think she's called Female Physio. I don't know if you heard of her.
No.
And she just randomly you'll be scrolling through your Instagram feed and all of a sudden she'll be like, okay, now it's time to clench. And she'll make you do pelvic floor exercises. And it's just maybe like 1 minute per day. So I just follow her and I do that. I find it's quite fun. It's quite easy for me to do. To be honest, I think I've been lucky so far. I haven't really had significant problems with my pelvic floor. If I'm being honest, actually, in the first maybe 2 weeks after my cesarean section, I did find that I had a lot of urgency, that when I needed to get to the toilet straight away. So I quickly saw how, if I didn't get on top of things like my pelvic floor exercise, that this can deteriorate. But yes, pelvic floor exercises are so important. I think, again, I'll probably share the link with you so you can put it in your bio description underneath, just of this person that you can just follow. She does 1 minute exercises and I do that maybe once a day, just to try and strengthen those muscles, because I can see how it can cause you a lot of discomfort in terms of, having problems with urine. When you're coughing and you sneeze, you can have issues. You might, have accidents because you're not able to get to the toilet in time. You're not able to hold your urine quite as well. And even other things that people don't talk about, people can also have excellent control of their bowels as well, where they might find that the passing wind when they don't intend to, or having a bit of leakages. So these are all things that can be affected by the pregnancy itself, and both having cesarean section and also giving birth vaginally. So people think vaginal deliveries are the ones where you need to do all these exercises, but even the pregnancy itself puts a lot of strain on your pelvic floor. So it's important these exercises. And I think, again, pelvic floor exercise is also important because we don't really talk about this much, but it also can help to prevent any discomfort that can occur from having sex after giving birth. If your pelvic floor is not as tight or is overly tight or not as lifted as it should be, can cause sex to become uncomfortable. And so it can affect so many different things. So definitely I would encourage everyone to try and do a bit of pelvic floor exercises, 1 minute a day, just to keep on top of it. And it just keeps you, checking in on yourself to see if there's anything that doesn't quite feel normal for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, 1 minute a day, if can lead to more, it's those small little habits that build up over time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So
And I mean, you just showing me in beginner video. So I think she does additional courses. So there's more, in case you are having any problems, there definitely, you can go see a female health physio by your GP. They can refer you to women's health physio as well. So if you have any issues, you don't have to suffer in silence. There's definitely help out there.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, always, like, anything that you feel like isn't right with you throughout your pregnancy, after your pregnancy, at any point, you have to make a note and go to your GP, definitely, because if you don't and leave it, and then they'll say, well, this is a new thing, and then you say, well, this started about 6 months ago, it becomes more difficult at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I want to talk about, you say, you're building an app, you're writing a book, amongst all the other amazing things you do. What exactly will the app be about, and who is it aimed for? And the same with your book.
Okay. So for the app, so essentially, I'm incorporating some AI technology into the app. It's going to have AI avatars that's going to be giving you health information from, like I said, preconception all the way to postpartum. So we're going to make sure it's interactive. So you're going to be able to ask this avatar questions, and it'll be able to give you some evidence-based answers based on NHS guidance, NICE guidance, and also it will signpost you for when you need to go and seek additional attention. But if it's just like, more generic questions, it can definitely supply those information. So in the middle of the night, if you're like, oh, something pops into your head, you can just quickly have a chat with it and be like, okay, no, you should do this, you should do that, and give this a try. If this doesn't work, this is where you can go to seek help. So that's one element of it. And the other element, that community hub that I was speaking about, where you just for support. So essentially it's going to be like almost, you can make friends on the app. You're going to be people in your local area that you can connect to. You can also ask, general questions like, my baby's not sleeping, what have you tried? And then you can have feedback from other mothers. And then finally, the third part of the app will be the part where you can access the different services available. So if you want a second opinion and for something that's gone on in your pregnancy, you can find other, private gynecologists that you can seek and you can book appointments with. If you want a doula, you can find a list of different doulas that you can access. Night nurse, for instance, I couldn't afford one at the time, but if you're in a position where you can afford to have a night nurse, which is something I would recommend everyone to do if you could afford it, then you can look at different night nurses who can just give you that bit of relief and allow you to have maybe 1 or 2 nights sleep in a week, especially in those first early weeks. So these are some different services, some of the different services you can access via the app. And in terms of the 4th trimester, I want it to be my book. So I'm writing the 4th trimester. I want it to be an encyclopedia, but on the woman's body after giving birth. So it's going to tell, my personal anecdotes, stories I heard from family, from friends, from patients, just the different things that can go on your body, some of the weird and wonderful things that can happen during pregnancy and postpartum. So, for instance, I didn't know that your foot could increase a shoe size or several shoe sizes during pregnancy, and it could stay the same even after giving birth. So, I bought, really expensive designer shoes for my wedding. So I thought, my husband, I told my husband the price. He was like, oh, I was like, it's a lifetime investment. I'm going to be able to wear this forever. I didn't anticipate that pregnancy would mean that my foot would increase the size. So now they're just sitting there on the shelf and I'm never going to be able to wear it again. Well, we'll see. But these are the things I want to share with people, things that people don't talk about. I want to talk about things like sex again. That's people don't really talk about. It's sort of spoken about in shame, like, oh, I find sex really uncomfortable. But I want to talk to women about this is what can happen and this is how you can make it better. You don't have to just struggle in silence. Just because sex wasn't good for you at the beginning after giving birth doesn't mean it always has to be this way. And then there's things that you can do to help improve things. I want to talk about things like mental health. I want to talk about neurodiversity as well and how it can affect motherhood. So these are all the different topics that will be covered in the book, plus some more. And it's going to be a book where you don't have to read it from start to finish at the beginning. You just go to different sections that may be relevant to you. So again, something I'm going to cover in the book is, having a rainbow baby after having a loss as well. So when you're pregnant, you might not want to read that straight away, but maybe after pregnancy, you might be having some different emotions that come with it, and you might then decide, this is the time when I actually go and read that chapter and see what I say about it, what other people have spoken to me about. So this is how I want the book to be approached. Just like something you give to someone as part of, when they have baby showers, you give it to a new mum and they can just dip in and out. And then hopefully once they're done with the book, they can pass it on to someone else and hopefully helps them too.
Wow, that's great. It's almost like a kind of like a dictionary, when you think of a word, like, I don't know, like sleep, and then you look up the word sleep, and then it tells you about that. Well, I know in the dictionary it just tells you what sleep means, but this is going to be obviously a lot more information on
it's going to be
whatever.
It's going to be engaging, it's going to be a bit humorous, it's going to be just be honest and just completely just transparent, honest stories about what I went through and what I've heard as well, and what people don't talk about. So perhaps you don't want to talk to your family member or your GP or midwife about it, but hopefully I cover it in a book and I cover it so that people like you're heard, that you're not alone.
Yeah, that's great. I can't wait to get the details of the app and the book.
Yes, I will send you a copy for you to read.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, whenever that's all ready, I will share that with my community, of course. So, it probably won't be in the show notes because it's not ready yet, but whenever it is, I will put that out there through my community emails. But Julie, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's been great to have you on, and thanks so much for sharing openly about your experiences as well.
Thank you so much for having me.